Two, check. Two, hello. Chad, are you with me? Are you there? The noise gate didn't pick up the sound of the DC hitting the glass. I did just go to the store and pick up some garlicky dill pickles. I did promise that I would do the pickle thing. In theory, I could do the pickle experiment, the pickle Diet Coke. There wasn't even that much enthusiasm for it. I was like, Joe, Dad, do you dare me? Do you dare me to put the Dua Lipa challenge and put pickles in my Diet Coke? And Chad's kind of like, yeah, just you can do it or not do it. You know, I'm kind of indifferent. And I'm like, oh, it's pickle time. You know, I can do it or not do it. It's not whatever, you know. If you want to see it, sure. Right now, I need the undiluted DC though. I didn't have one yesterday. I did not have one yesterday, and I gotta say I missed it. Look at my hair too. God, my hair's getting so long. Oh. It really is an addiction at this point. Like, it's not even like I'm not even doing like a bit or anything like that. Like, it really is. It's not like cigarettes or something. Like, I wouldn't go into withdrawal if I didn't have it, but it's when I do miss it. I really do. When I don't have it. And when I have it again after not having it, it's just like my body is really and my brain are both like, ooh, yeah. Ooh, baby, that's the stuff. You, me, and the Donald. Diet Coke for life. I wish I had a Diet Coke button on my desk like Donald Trump did. That was one of the coolest things about him. He had his little Diet Coke button. I wish I had that. I wish one of you, Chad, one of my minions, one of my loyal minions could just bring me a Diet Coke at any time. Bloop. I don't usually have more than one in a day. Maybe I'll have two. I don't think I could be like a 3, 4, 5, 6 Diet Coke guy. I don't think I could do that. The man is an innovator. It's undeniable. I'm such a degen. I even drink caffeine-free Diet Coke. That's smart. I never understood the idea of that, but then I was like, ooh, a nighttime Diet Coke. That could be nice. That could be nice. I did just get what I got for my nighttime soda just now, though, is I got Diet Cranberry Canada Dry, which I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to having a little taste of that later. Diet Cranberry Canada Dry. I just picked some up. That's going to be tasty. Oh. Oh. They use aspartame. I don't know, because there was Diet Canada Dry, but this is actually Canada Dry Zero Sugar. So I think it's probably a different concoction. I love those different sugar substitute sodas that have different names. I'm almost at the end of the stand. Like I've said, I've been listening to the stand audiobook. It's like 50 fucking hours long. And I'm almost at the end. Usually the zero is just a mix of aspartame, a little bit of Splenda. It's a little bit sweeter, isn't it? It's a little bit sweeter. Like to me, aspartame, like Diet Coke, doesn't taste sweet at all. It tastes like cola flavored fizzy water. I don't find it sweet. The zeros, those are actually, they're making more of an effort to be actually sweet. To actually like replicate the taste of sugar. A little bit sweeter, just like this chat. I caught a ping pong ball in a stream of tap water. I made it dance to my tune. I feel the power. Solid first chat of the day from Dick Pandaren. I noticed I was drinking Diet Coke more for the ritual of going to the store and having something to do with my hands. I don't know, it's just there's something about the caffeine boost. It's the sound. Like, it's the sound. The sound is meaningful to me. That's why I prefer it in a can than a bottle. I need the tss. I need that. I don't know. That's part of it. That's part of the whole ritual. You know? I like the feel of the cold can in my hand. The sound of the tab popping.
Good old Rob to talk you through all this.
My trashy cocktail go-to right now is red wine mixed with cherry Coke Zero. Please judge me. Nothing matters anymore.
Oh, wow. Old Dutch. Oh, my God. I respect that you're sharing that with the chat, and thanks for the 43 months resub at tier 2, and thanks for everything you do for me and the community, Old Dutch. I appreciate you. That is fucked up, though. I will admit. Do they make Diet Coke in glass bottles? Yeah, they do. Opening the can is part of it, but the taste, the experience is so much better out of the can. Yeah, I agree. Even when I pour it from the can into a glass, it tastes different than if you're pouring it from a bottle. Yeah, I like the sound. That's the other sounds too. Like when you're drinking it, it goes like it makes like a bubbly of the air escaping as it goes into your mouth. You know? I just like everything about it. In a glass is nice as well because you got the tinkling of the ice cubes as well. You know, don't leave that out of it. The clinking ice cubes. I've started drinking a much cheaper cola, which I have to dilute to stretch it, and it's from a German grocery chain, Lidl. And they couldn't find a bottle shape that hadn't already been copyrighted, so the bottles of Freeway sugar-free cola lime are very tall and bounce out of the fridge every time I open it. Oh no. That's just, you're really struggling right now. That sounds awful. I would still try it though. I would try the Freeway sugar-free cola lime though. I would give it a shot. The best part of the first 30 to 60 minutes of a stream is we will never know what the topics will be for the downtime. Welcome to the revolution. I never know either. Hello, Husker. What is up? Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, so I'm just getting to the end of the Stand audiobook. It's like almost 50 hours. And I'm at actually, like, as much as I love the first, like, 400 pages of the Stand, and there's a bunch of stuff, like, in the middle that I skip through, as I've been talking about. Skip through every single Mother Abigail section, which is just painful. Just causes me physical pain. All of those parts. I don't want to spoil the story too much, but there's kind of an epilogue. There's like an epilogue after the main story is over. There's an epilogue of these two people making their way back across of one of the characters recovering from a serious injury and illness and making their way across the Rocky Mountains back to Boulder, Colorado. And there's something I find really just enjoyable about that. I don't know, it's like a trope that they all die on their way back to their home planet. there's always a trope that I really like in stories or books or whatever, where like there's like a storm and people like seek refuge from it, you know, and they like they're making the way to this town, and it's like an extended epilogue. One who reads, it's like an extended epilogue. It's not an official epilogue, but it's like the main story's over, and then it just continues on. And a lot of the stakes are gone from it. A lot of the mysticism and horror is kind of gone from it. And it's just this story about these two people going on this journey back home. It's like the end of The Hobbit when they go back, or the end of Return of the King when the hobbits go back to the Shire, you know? It's kind of like that. Because I know The Stand is also very influenced by The Lord of the Rings. And I like it. It's one of my favorite sections of the book, even though there's less going on. There's less going on, you know? But it's nice. And it's a whole section that probably could have been wrapped up in about 5 pages, but Stephen King being Stephen King extends it to this like kind of 100-page kind of mini story. But it's nice. I'm almost to the end of it. I am almost at the end of this incredibly long audiobook. It's my first foray into the audiobook lifestyle. And it's been mostly enjoyable, even though there's a lot of stuff about The Stand that I really do not like. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there that I think is really bad, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that I like quite a bit. That's Stephen King for you. Yeah, the Lloyd Henry stuff in the prison is rough, Kill Panic, for sure. Hey, we got Kijiji Genie. Look at that first. The very first chatter of the day. Congratulations. Congratulations to you, Kijiji Genie. You win as the very first chatter of the day. $1 million. Congratulations. Sorry, I feel like I seem and I feel a little sluggish today. I never get enough sleep. You know, if it's not one thing or the other. My kid still wakes me up every single night. The DC is going to kick in soon, exactly. And also, I'm on a different shower cycle because often I do it. I take a shower before the stream, and that kind of wakes me up a little bit. And now, because I didn't have time yesterday, I didn't take a shower before the stream. I took a shower later at night, and then because I took a shower at night, I didn't take one this morning before the stream, and now I wish that I had, because it does like wake my brain up a little bit. I still, even though I've been up since 8 or 7:50 doing stuff, driving around. I brought my kid to school. I went grocery shopping. I returned something at Spirit Halloween. I've been doing stuff for hours here, but I feel like I just got out of bed. Did your copy have the bit with Trash Can Man and the Rockabilly dude going over the Rockies? Yeah, that's the extended version. I actually have 2. The audiobook that I was reading was the extended version. But I actually have both. I love The Stand. Even this, I have such a weird relationship with this book. I have both. I have the complete version and the original version. I have such a weird relationship with this book. I really love this book, but I hate it also. There's a good third of it that I fucking hate. But like the parts that I like, I really like a lot. You can return stuff to Spirit Halloween up until the 18th. You can't like go and buy stuff and then return it after Halloween. That would defeat the whole purpose. Then you could just be you could just run some kind of Halloween costume scam. Up to the 18th, you can return it though. And I was there the other day, and I told you my kid has this idea for a Halloween costume, You know, he wants to dress up for Halloween as the YouTuber Technoblade, who passed away. And I keep telling him, like, no one knows who this is. No one's going to recognize what your costume is. You should just be someone that people are going to recognize. There's lots of other things you can do. He kind of feels like he has his heart set on it. And I don't want to be a hard ass about it. Like, it's his Halloween costume. So if he wants to dress up in like a king robe and a pig nose and a crown, I'm not going to be like, no, you're not allowed to do that. Like, whatever. It's just, he's 8 years old and it's Halloween, right? So, but so we went to the Spirit Halloween, and he decided for like part of his costume, he found like this like pirate belt that would be, I guess, part of like some kind of kingly outfit. And I was like, yeah, like, I guess we can get that. He got a crown and he got this belt. And I didn't even like look at it. I was just like, how much could that possibly be? This is a real like neglectful consumer moment. I was like, how much could that possibly be? I don't know, whatever. It's a belt. It's not even a full costume. How much could it possibly be? And it was like $35. Classic dad blunder. It was like this $35 pirate belt. And for adults. I just didn't even look at the package. He was like, I want this for a part of my costume. And I was like, oh, all right, I guess so. You know what? I guess so. And it's like, oh, I just bought a $35 pirate belt that's going to be worn once. That's for adults. That doesn't even fit. And I was like, this is not going to work. So I returned it. I returned it to Spirit Halloween today. Rather than just like having this, owning this thing forever that I'm always going to look at and being like, why did I buy this? Why did I spend $30 on this? That's maybe possibly going to be worn once, you know? So I returned it. So we're going to see what happens. He may still stick with the same costume, but I did return this $30 pirate belt that I got, though. I gotta pay attention to that stuff. I could have had one glance at the package and been like, this is both too expensive and will not fit you. But I did neither of those things. Maybe this is just me, but does anyone else get too embarrassed sometimes to return things and just eats the cost? I mean, that sounds like something that I would do a lot of the time, Cool J, but for this, I was just like, no, I can't. I'm not doing this. I'm not buying this $30 pirate belt that doesn't even fit my son. I can't do this. It was going to really bother me. I think the important part is the doesn't fit part. Yeah, if it was really fit and it was an integral part of the costume, I'd say, okay, I'll spend $30 on this thing. I'm going to reuse my nun costume for as long as possible until I see proof of atonement, but pirates are awesome too, I vouch. You'll get your atonement, all right? I miss the Venom costume. Yeah, I don't think it would fit him anymore. That thing was like genuinely quite scary. No, talking about returning things and like I'm really bad with that kind of stuff. Like the other day I went out to lunch with somebody and we got this like French dip sandwich or like an Italian, like a beef dip, whatever it is. Whatever, was it French or Italian? I don't know. Like a beef dip sandwich, which comes with like the au jus to dip it in. And they brought it out and it was like a gravy and it wasn't the au jus. And I was just like, I just never would have said anything, you know?
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
I would have just eaten it with the gravy. And she was just like, no. We're going to get the thing that we asked for. You know? I was like, oh, you can do that, I guess. You can do that. Diego, thank you for a gifted sub. Forget sending food back. I would not send food back because of the quality. If there was a quality issue, I would just eat the food and just not be happy about it. I think if you actually get the wrong thing, you're allowed though. If you get the wrong thing, you're allowed to send it back. But this is something I have to learn myself. Au juice, they say. That's French for dipping sauce. That's right. Yes. You are allowed to do that stuff, though, chat. You know, you are allowed. You're not going to be in trouble. You're not going to be in trouble if you order something and the order is wrong and you say, like, hey, do you mind just, like, fixing this thing? You're not going to get in trouble. No one's going to be mad at you. You just confidently say, I'm here to return this pirate belt, sir. That's exactly right, and that's exactly what I did. But then I have to talk to an adult, and that's scary. Well, I hear you. I hear ya. Last time I got an au jus sandwich, I thought the bowls were cleaning your fingers. Just do a little, put it in a shot glass, just knock it back after your sandwich. There are no clout returns on the 2D triangle, though. No, that is true. There's no exchanges or refunds involved with that. That is absolutely correct. As I say many times, as the song goes, as that famous song goes, you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. Especially if you're friendly and polite, servers will do anything to make sure things are right. You obviously don't be a dick. You know. That's something that I would never do and never condone. Tom Petty, that's right. Been a long night and I hate the fucking Eagles. Get out of my cab. me telling the waiter my order was wrong. Excuse me, teacher. Excuse me, mom. I mean, teacher. Remember doing that, Eric? Remember that? I know you did that before, Eric. I know you did. This is good, but I actually asked for something else. It's okay, though. Never mind. I hope you're doing okay. Yeah. I actually hung out with Big Shiny Takes Eric IRL a few weeks ago. And you know what? It was lovely. And I had a fantastic time. Putting my mom on speakerphone so she can tell the waiter I wanted onion rings and not fries. Oh boy. I hung out with Big Shiny Takes Eric IRL the other day and it was wonderful. And you know what? We had such a powerful parasocial relationship that I was like, have we hung? I feel like we have hung out before and we didn't. And we hadn't. It was their very first time. It was so fun to meet you in person at the terrible dive bar near my house. It wasn't terrible. It was lovely. I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed myself immensely. I think we're going to hang out again soon, Eric. I think we got plans to hang out on election night. And in fact, I'm going to be doing this show on election night. And if you want, you can come and be on the show. If you want. And we can shoot the shit about the election or whatever else. Is it also Canadian election night? 2 for the price of none. For a while, it seemed like it might be 2 at the same time. It looked maybe like they were going to have 2 at the same time, but I don't think it's going to work out like that. We're not quite there yet. I just heard a great track from Montreal band Men I Trust. Any other local Montreal band Rex? I'm pretty out of the loop when it comes to the Montreal music scene up the Reds. I don't even know this band Men I Trust. I think the only Montreal band that I know that's doing anything right, like of note right now, is Half Moon Run. I think they had a couple of pretty decent songs. I'm very out of the loop though. I was a substitute one time for 5 minutes, and I don't know how Rob does it. I've been doing this now for 4 fucking years of my life. I don't know how I do it either, frankly. The very first, not the very first, but one of the very first episodes of this iteration of this program was election night 2020. And now I've been doing it for 4 fucking years. I don't even know how to process that. That's so many hours of streaming. And a lot of people do even more. And, you know, I respect that. But, man, that's been a lot of hours streamed, a lot of words spoken, a lot of jokes and japes, some serious analysis and news coverage. And I think the most important thing is over those 4 years, I've never misspoken once. Not one time have I done that. A lot of friendships. I'm going to elect Rob for another term as chairman of TRRA. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's a typo. Running unopposed yet again. A lot of shit has been shot. One of my favorite streams was when you did a southern accent for 20 minutes. As everyone knows, I can instantly mimic. I have a chameleonic ability to instantly mimic any culture. As long as it's not offensive. Those I don't do. You'll never find him. He'll blend in, disappear. With any luck, he's got the grail already. A 100% perfect pronunciation record. Many apples eaten. Many beverages drank. It's honestly like unbelievable to me. Like that, I consider just like, you know, there's a part of me that just kind of wants to just like hang out with people on election night and just watch the election. But I have this like psychological thing. It's like, no, I must do an election night stream because it makes this it's an end point, you know. Maybe not an end, you know. Maybe end is a little not accurate. But it's like, you know, there's a certain spiritual kind of thing to that. As you can see, I've gotten much better at describing things as well over this time. He's orange. If the orange man wins, maybe end. And he very well may. The orange man may very well win. We listened to a Parenti speech on Dave Legend's stream. Parenti mentioned how they made fun of Archie Bunker of All in the Family for his misspeaking because he was working class. Got me thinking maybe we should go easier on Rob for flubs. That's right. I'm a working class, salt of the earth, roll up the sleeves, grab the lunch pail, content producer. Can't wait to share the moment with you all when the camera cuts to the losers party is my favorite part of the election. I mean, I feel like it's very unlikely that the election is going to be called that night. Right? I think it's really unlikely. I once explained slub to rib to a non-podcast friend, and they looked at me like I had lost my mind, as they should. As they should. There's a lot of out-of-context bits that have gone along with this show that if you tried to explain them to any like normal person with a normal brain, they'd be like, it seems not healthy that you're involved in this. You know? Do an official TRRS election poll and who Chad believes will win. We can do that. I don't know. Like I've said a couple times, it really looked like impossible for Trump to win a couple months ago. And I think it was, I had an epiphany during the Liz Cheney endorsement rally where I was like, oh fuck. Oh man. You very well might. I watched the new Al Jazeera doc on Israel live streaming genocide last night, and even though I've seen much of this over the course of the past year, seeing it all collected together is so damning. Anyone still uninformed or unsure has no excuse. They should just watch that. I do, because I haven't watched it yet either. I wanted to watch it on this stream, but I didn't know if like the stream's going to get banned or whatever, if I did. But I agree, like even though we've probably watched all of this footage out of context, even just watching like that Gray Zone documentary that compiles all of the lies and exaggerations and fabrications about the Hamas atrocities. Seeing it all collected together is like really kind of shocking and jarring. We can't govern. We hate life and ourselves. Simpson's right about the Dems for the millionth time. It's crazy how accurate that is. We're just plain evil. Yeah, we know about Sinwar. We can talk about this. I just feel like I need a little bit more time to get rolling here before we start talking about, like, before we're getting too serious. ML thought is my login here. Loud ass snap. What would this show be were it not for the first 40 minutes of apple eating ASMR? What kind of apple we got? As we all know, I'm Honeycrisp Squad. It is a good apple, ML thought ism. Bearing in mind Trump didn't really accept the election he won was legitimate. How badly do you think he'll react this time? I don't know. Like, that's the thing. It's like, it's hard to imagine how either side are going to react to losing. I don't think either side are really going to accept it. if Kamala does lose, what's going to be it's going to be Iran, China, Russian disinformation, TikTok, the Green Party. They're already setting the stage to blame like Jill Stein, the Green Party. Like maybe she'll concede, but the excuses will get rolled out right away. And I don't know if Trump... a liberal January 6th would be very funny. That would be really funny. The Harris head stole the Capitol. It's like 24 like hardcore MSNBC watchers. Gotta go get apples now. We're apple pilling everybody. Gotta get the rest of the Mr. Showcast, yeah. That would actually be a funny bit if like the entire cast of Mr. Show ended up in prison for insurrection, but like for different political motivations. After giving Israel all the money and weapons to sabotage their own Democratic candidate for a whole calendar year, it's crazy to think of the Democrats trying to blame their loss on anyone but themselves. I know it's crazy, but it's going to happen, though. That's the thing. Of course it's crazy. Of course it is. But that's what's going to happen, though, is the main thing. It's like, maybe it's the fact that we spent all this time talking about how conservatives and Republicans are weird, creepy people who stand for a bunch of like regressive, unpopular things that we don't want to do. And then we pivoted away from that to being like, actually, they're good and they're our friends and we like them. And we're actually even more conservative than them when you think about it. And we're going to put them in our cabinet and we're going to make a bipartisan advisory committee. Our Dick Cheney is our dad now. It's Brat Fall with Dick Cheney. Maybe that was the reason that we lost. But no, that's not going to happen. Running ads against Jill Stein is wild losing behavior. You can't imagine the polls are looking great. It just reeks of desperation, their whole campaign. You have like them freaking out about Jill Stein and of course AOC contributing to that as well. AOC getting involved in the Jill Stein attacks. You have Obama like preemptively lecturing black men, who I've seen people pointing out as well, black men, some of the most reliable Democratic voters year after year after year. And you have Obama being like preemptively before the election even starts, if you don't vote for Kamala, it's because you're a misogynist. You got Hillary out there calling these student encampments like Iran-funded useful idiots for authoritarian Islamic fundamentalism. The pull up your pants of electoral politics. Like, what the fuck are they doing? Wasn't it like 87% of them that voted for Biden? Like, year after year after year, one of the most consistent voting blocks, constituencies. Whereas I don't even think they got a majority of white women when Hillary was running, but you don't see the same lectures. You don't see the same kind of like accusations. Kamala's out here busting her ass protecting black people's crypto assets. Man. Yeah, now she's saying she'll legalize weed. I mean, they should have been running on legal weed years ago. I think saying that like 2 weeks before this election happens does seem a little bit desperate. She's bragging about Bush and Reagan endorsement. Trump is the ultimate Reagan policy continuation. Why should we be concerned about Trump if we like Reagan now? As we've talked about a number of times when it comes to like Israel, like Reagan did more to rein in Israel when they were attacking Lebanon in the 80s than anything the Democratic Party has ever done. The legal weed and 30-day trial period for Israeli war crimes feels like such Hail Marys. Yeah, and as discussed, as we talked about yesterday, and I did a podcast about this yesterday, this whole 30 days to stop committing war crimes is really just an effort to force through their Saudi Arabia normalization deal / security pact that multiple administrations have been trying to ram through for now multiple years now. Like, that's all it is. Till after the election, that's right, because they want to maybe ram it through in the lame duck period. "30 more days of war crimes is not a restriction, it's a rush order." Yeah, and this is another thing, an important thing that Eric Sperling talked to me about yesterday, which I think is like really pertinent to think about this. What Israel's been doing, for its entire existence is like old school colonialism. All the West is trying to do is just like gently take them by the shoulders and put it and transition it into a neo-colonial exploitation rather than the old school colonialist genocide. They're like, no, you can still exploit. You still exploit the people, but you have to do it in this way where it's slightly more subtle and there's kind of a degree of separation. Like, this is how we've been doing it in around the world for years now. That's literally all it is. They're like, we want to transition Israel from doing old school colonialist genocide to neo-colonial exploitation. Yeah, you got to keep them as slaves, but just stop bombing them. And you put people in charge that are from there that do what you say. Right? That's all they're trying to do. Kamala just needs to announce that she'll establish a student loan debt forgiveness program for Pell Grant recipients who start a business that operates for 3 years in disadvantaged communities. I think she would soar to election. 50 state landslide if that was the case. I'll be honest, I know nothing about Jill Stein, but I'll vote for her because it triggers libs that much. I mean, all the conversation about the Green Party and third parties and stuff like that is silly to me as well. It's like, I don't think anyone actually thinks that Jill Stein is going to win this election and stop the genocide from happening. But it's like when the Democratic Party stands for all these awful policies, including allowing Israel to commit a genocide, and then the Green Party steps up as a way for people to like express their disgust with that. That's what it is. This whole idea that if the Green Party wasn't there, all these people are just going to vote Democrat is just absurd. That's what these votes are about. They're about people being like, this is how I register to the liberal elites in this society that I am opposed to these genocidal policies that we've been supporting for the last year. And this is the only, since as I'm a voter, this is the only fucking leverage that I have. Clearly they don't listen to protests. They don't listen to speeches. They don't any of the things that they tell people to do. Even if you run within the party and become part of the party, they still don't listen to you. The only thing that I can do as a voter is use this leverage to deny them some kind of victory, maybe. And that's what it's about. If you don't vote for our incredibly weak platform that is diluted by the fact we don't even feel the need to try to appeal to our base because our opponent is an insane person, you actually hate women. That's right. That's what they say. That's exactly what they say. And if someone could gift a sub to Big Shiny Takes Eric 2, I'm sure he would appreciate it more than me. It's more for me. But, ideally if someone could do that, that would be great. You don't reward bad behavior. Simple as. And I don't think anyone thinks that if Donald Trump does win, that's going to be better for anybody. I think people know full well that it's not going to be better. But it's like, this is what happens when you have this lesser of two evils, fake democratic duopoly, and one of the two parties is committing one of the worst horrific crimes of the modern era that we've seen with all in full view for the last year. I think people know full well that Trump's going to be way worse on a number of other issues. And if they lose, that's going to be on them for supporting these policies that people find so disgusting. It drives me crazy. It's the fucking responsibility of a political party to earn my vote. I'm not giving them my vote. It's their problem and not mine. It's what happens in America, though, and to some extent in Canada and elsewhere. It's like the political party tells you what the agenda is, and then you just show up. It's like they're your boss, they're your mom, they're your dad. It completely flips the way that power structure is supposed to work. They're supposed to be accountable to you, elected officials, not the other way around. Like, what the fuck? It's the most like brainwashed culture, because people have treat these politicians like Kamala like they're celebrities. They tell me what the agenda is, and then I just shut the fuck up and pull the lever for them when it comes down to it. And I lecture everyone else and I yell at everyone else that doesn't agree with that.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Ziminyar, thanks for the gifted sub to Eric. It is a hogwashed culture. We're brainwashed. We've been body snatched. Like 90% of our population in the West are body snatched. Remember before October 7th, what did we even used to talk about? We talked a bit about this. To be fair, I think we did spend a lot of time over the last 4 years still talking about Israel. Maybe not quite to the same extent. But it did come up a lot. But yeah, there's a lot of Ukraine talk. Definitely. How's that going, by the way? It seems like that's going really well. I'm glad that everyone that supported that has fully still on board with that. And it's not like there's all these people that put their whole identities into supporting Ukraine that are now just completely never talk about it ever again. A lot of squibs and gooning. And the excellent film The Big Lebowski. Making fun of Ukrainian Nazis was the thing. There was a lot of that. Yeah. There was a lot of that. No Ukraine flags in American lawns anymore. No. We've moved on. Sorry about that, Ukraine. You did a great job. You did a bang-up job using all those weapons we sent, but we've moved on now. There's more important stuff going on. Ukraine's won back all their land. They're close to taking over Moscow. You used to sing for us. I still do sometimes. I still owe you a song, chat. I still owe you a song. And one day you're going to get it. Here's how Ukraine can still do a counteroffensive. Here's how Hillary can still win. Remember those posts? Remember when we actually heard Rob's sweet, sweet singing voice? I remember a couple months ago I did Lilac Wine and I felt pretty good about it. I felt pretty good about that Lilac Wine cover. In fact, I think I wanted to save it and I never got around to it. One day, I will sing again, chat. He will sing again. Anyone over know what happened to that Texan guy in the Donbass? He got. I think he got by the Russians as well, which is like shows the level of prowess that they've been displaying over this whole time. They had one of their primary Westerners that was there doing basically doing agitprop for them, and they took him out. Great job, guys. Rob will sing again, much like the Israelis will dance again. No, nothing like that, actually. Accent jingle. That would actually be funny if that was the case. This election is nauseating. I think even though we have talked about it a fair amount over the last couple of months, I think overall I've thought about this election probably a lot less than other previous American elections for the last couple of years. Because it's just felt so like... I think there was a brief resurgence in interest with Biden stepping down. Overall, it's just been such a depressing slog, though. Just a big mess. It is nauseating, though. Why did I choose this as a career, to talk about this stuff all the time? I don't know. In retrospect, maybe I could have done something different. Biden drops out of the race due to cognitive decline, yet he's still the sitting president America has cooked. Don't worry, though. All his very unpopular policies are still being kept in place. The person that replaced this man has made totally clear that there will be no differentiation whatsoever between the incredibly unpopular administration that he was overseeing and her own. So, thank goodness.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
He also leaked that they'll never cut off arms despite the 30-day thing. Yeah, it took about 6 hours to be like, hey, whoa, just let's not get crazy on this ultimatum thing. Let's not get crazy. I think everyone in media can agree that it's fun to feel bad about stuff, and it never affects our moods outside of work. No, I just feel mentally strong and competent at all times. Pup Tetris, thanks for the 3 months of Prime. Very, very kind of you. Thank you. I feel mentally strong too. Good. And it's weird too, because I've been trying to take steps lately to like do things that make me happy, you know? And you have like almost like a guilt. Like, do I deserve this? Do I deserve to be happy? And there's this part of you that's like, no. No, you do not. You're doing something wrong. You're doing something wrong for like taking time to like time for yourself, time to like do something in your own life that makes you feel good. Love that feeling. That's good, isn't it? All the Dems have to do now is just institute policy that protects people's rights, and there checks Twitter attacking trans people. They literally did a tweet that was like attacking Donald Trump for, under the Trump administration, there being still gender-affirming care for prisoners in the barbaric United States prison system. and they're like calling out Trump for being too good on trans rights. That's an interesting strategy, considering the way trans people especially, and other LGBTQIA plus people are held up as this like human shield to avoid any accountability from Democrats for their awful, neoliberal policies. And then they're literally like accusing Trump of being too kind to trans people and too soft on Iran. Hillary's been advocating for years to throw trans rights overboard to win. Of course, there's a whole contingent of the Democratic Party, like consultancy class and leadership class, that would love to do that. They've convinced themselves that it's a big loser. The most oppressed people in society have had it too good for too long. That's their final pitch to American voters. I've gone in the opposite, where the current climate has motivated me to improve myself. I want to be more of a person who can be relied upon in certain areas, physically, mentally, financially. Yeah, I need to work on that as well, Wilco. Like I said, I've been really trying to do things in my life to, like, feel happy, feel satisfied. Physically, though, I'm a bit of a mess. That's something I need to work on. Oh, Carnoba, is this true? UK counter-terror unit raided the home of Asa Winstanley of Electronic Intifada. What the fuck? Man, this climate is getting so fucking scary. Like, this is getting really crazy. And this is what I worry about, like, organizations like Samidun being like labeled as these extremist groups or terrorist groups. They don't have to stop there. They can go to like PYM, Students for Justice in Palestine. Like, and they can go after all these groups and just start linking them. We know that these links don't have to be like real. They can be super tenuous links. They can start going after the leadership of these organizations, people in the media, like ASA. Like, there's a real chance that we're only kind of scratching the surface of the way that like people can start to be targeted in the activist world or the media world. The terrorists are the people calling for no more bombings, actually, and the child-killing, lingerie-wearing psychos are the ones that are the heroic defenders of democracy and peace. This is the fucked up, upside-down reality that we're inhabiting. British counter-terrorism police on Thursday raided the home and seized several electronic devices belonging to the Electronic Intifada's associate editor, Asa Winstanley. Approximately 10 officers arrived at Winstanley's North London home before 6 a.m. and served the journalist with warrants and other papers authorizing them to search his house and vehicles for devices and documents. A letter addressed to Winstanley from the Counter-Terrorism Command of the Metropolitan Police Service indicates that the authorities are aware of your profession as a journalist, but that notwithstanding, police are investigating possible offenses under Sections 1 and 2 of the Terrorism Act of 2006. These provisions set up the purported offense of encouragement of terrorism. And again, this the concept of terrorism, the way this is wielded. You can literally give money to the IDF, who commit more terrorism than any of these extremist groups could ever hope to in a lifetime. Actual terrorism. Like, the definitionally targeting civilians, targeting civilian infrastructure, collective punishment, collective starvation. You can raise money for these groups You can raise money to like give resources and housing to people from other countries to go and join this baby killing army of psychopaths. But if you do journalism that talks about anything regarding Palestinians' right to organized resistance to the occupation, that's terrorism. It is so insane. Justin Potter said they'll never forget and never forgive anyone that stood against this genocide. Well, they're going to have to, there's a lot of people they're going to have to come after. But this, I mean, this is terrorism in and of itself. Like, this is trying to, like, make people afraid to speak out. You know, they don't have to go after everyone, but if they go after a few key people, they can make everyone afraid to speak out and think that they're going to be next. And I think that's where it's our responsibility to refuse to give into that bullshit. An officer conducting Thursday's raid informed Winstanley that the investigation was connected with the journalist's social media posts. Attempts to reach the Metropolitan Police Service for comment for this story have been unsuccessful. That is crazy. And again, they might not even, like he said, he's not been arrested, he's not been charged with any crime. But this is a way to to scare people out of doing the right thing. You know, even if you get all your devices back and you go, okay, fine, no, you're not being charged with anything. This can be the whole months-long process. If you report on our crimes, you go to jail. I mean, this is the authoritarianism that we've been warned about all the scary other countries. Oh, you don't want to go to, you support China, you support whatever other country, don't you know they don't have freedom of speech there? Like, this is exactly that. This is exactly what these people, the very same people, by the way, that support these policies, this is the very same thing. This is the authoritarianism that they've been speaking of for this entire time. Don't you know they don't have free speech in these inferior cultures? Don't you know they don't have free press? They don't have freedom of the press? Meanwhile, we've seen people arrested for organizing, being taking part in activism. We've seen people arrested and harassed by the police for wearing, having images of paragliders. We have journalists that are reporting on the genocide in Gaza being harassed and arrested, not arrested, but having their devices seized and investigated for supporting terrorism. I would let Kim check my devices as well. I know there's nothing, I don't have anything to hide. EI is encouraging terrorism, but the West arming al-Nusra and the Saudis and straight up creating the Mujahideen is not. That's right, yeah. The largest exporter of terrorism in the world by any stretch of the imagination is the United States of America. And Israel is one of the main recipients of that. President Xi, please. Our people yearn for liberation.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Please save us, President Xi.
Cut man, thanks for the 38 months, tier 1. Probably 500k dead. You can't even report on it because you're doing terrorism. You can, of course, you can talk about Palestine. You can talk about Palestinians' right to resist occupation, but the only way that can take shape is a nonviolent march to the border fence. What about that? Has anyone tried that? Has anyone tried some kind of boycott or divesting or sanctioning platform? What about that? Can we try that? Obviously, we can't support any kind of armed resistance. We can't support Hamas. We can't support Hezbollah. We can't support the PFLP. We can't support any form of like organized resistance. What about some of these nonviolent means? What about, have we tried doing that? Maybe we should try doing that. Oh, you're saying those are also anti-Semitic and those are also terrorist? Oh, okay. What exactly can we talk about then? I would like some guidelines on this. What exactly are we allowed to say about this? Like, maybe they should just let us know. It doesn't seem like any form of Palestinian resistance is acceptable. It doesn't seem like any form of like Western organizing to support people in Palestine is acceptable, right? Don't start a advocacy network that advocates on behalf of Palestinian prisoners, where we know beyond a shadow of a doubt people are being tortured and raped and abused for decades, because that's terrorism as well. But of course, we can still keep funding and supplying the torturers and the rapists that are keeping them in these prisons. That's actually totally fine to do. I was going to make a joke about playing rock, paper, scissors to decide who gets the land, but Israel would consider that an act of war because rocks. Exactly. Even if they saw two kids playing rock, paper, scissors to pass the time, they would be threatened by them. You can talk about Israel's right to exist and to defend itself. That's right. That's what you can talk about. You can talk about how we need to have dialogues regarding de-escalation of escalating tensions, and both sides need to tone it down. And yeah, I know they don't care about the hypocrisy. Like, I know that. We all know that. But it's just like, it's just enough to make you feel insane, you know? I rewatched Gaza Fights for Freedom on stream the other day, and when the sniper clip came up again, my stomach sank all over again. Yeah, it's just like, it's just completely. This is a deeply sick society that we've been subsidizing, and it's an extension of our own deep sickness that we continue to support this. Look, we all know the good side of this conflict naturally has pro-rape rallies. It's a basic politics, and again, supporting that, like talking about it, doing journalism about it, organizing, sending weapons, rallying, whatever it is, that's actually okay to do. But anyone resisting that, if there's anyone like promoting that kind of resistance, that's no bueno. Can't have that. It's terrorism. Ugh. Kamala doing rape propaganda events as recently as June, but reporting on the casualties is terrorism. I mean, she did that Palestinian rape propaganda in her statement on October 7th. That really sucks with the electronic intifada. They're the only place I've seen documenting the war in detail. Well, I don't doubt that they're going to continue to do so. You know, until they get physically forced to stop. You know, they're going to be continuing to do that. They've been booted off YouTube once before I could see this being used as further justification. It's just scary. I mean, we're just like all these social media companies, all our mainstream media companies, they're all fully intertwined with the state. You know, the huge amount of crossover between these tech companies and like the Democratic Party, other major political parties. They all have connections with the intelligence community. It's one big club and you ain't in it. That's true. It never gets old. I think that the internet was developed as a weapon and remains one. I've definitely felt a sense of like real nostalgia for the internet as it existed, 10, 15 years ago. It's really just gone now, isn't it? There's Twitter as well. Like I've stuck around on Twitter through the whole Elon experiment. I've for the first time I'm really strongly considering not being on there anymore.
Electronic Intifada is a violent name. They should have called themselves the Electronic Total Unconditional Surrender.
Joe 110, thank you for the 200 bits. Thank you. Yeah, all this stuff with like Elon and Twitter and like the whole block function changing. Like I'm like, I don't know if I can stay on this platform anymore. Like I block so many people on there. I don't know if I can do it. It's full just sunk cost fallacy. It's still hard. It's hard not to want to still be on there, given that's the place where I have actual reach, and as someone that's always been interested in like, writing, podcasting, talking about this stuff, it's nice to have like a platform where like I can write things that's going to be reached by people. But it's like, fuck. I don't know how much longer I can do it. What's changing? They're changing the block function, Dr. Maggots, and the people that you block can then see all your posts again, even if they can't reply or respond. Why? I don't know. Probably because Elon Musk is one of the most blocked people on the website and wants people to see his posts. That's the thing. It's like I appreciate being able to have a platform where I can write things and people can see it, but like if it just went away tomorrow, honestly, I don't think I would feel that bad about it. Would be a net positive for the Hellbird site to die. I think it probably would. Even if I do still see some value in it, Like just over the last year, it has been a place where a lot of like, news about the genocide has been able to be propagated on a really wide level. We'd all have to go somewhere else marginally less shitty. I think I would just probably stay here. I'm not have you seen Threads? Threads is not good. Excuse me. I hate Blue Sky. I'm not doing Blue Sky. I think I'm just throwing in the towel. I think I might just throw in the towel if we get there. I don't know. I'll probably still stay on Twitter, but if I start to feel the lack of block function, I'm probably not going to stick around. We should talk about Sinwar. And I have a really good video to show about this. So the leader of Hamas was assassinated, as we all probably know. And I don't know, it's just like I don't see how any of this is ever going to make a difference. Like, they can assassinate whoever they want. They can assassinate the head of Hamas, the head of Hezbollah, the Hamas top political negotiator. They can't just assassinate every single leader of every organization that they don't like. This idea that they can just keep doing this and eventually they're just going to kill people enough that no one will want to have any kind of organized resistance against them anymore is just completely delusional. But I think in the same way that, like, when Nasrallah was assassinated, and you can look at clips of him and realize that, he's not just this kind of like terrorist caricature the way that gets promoted in our media and in our politics. And you actually listen to some of these people speak about why they're part of this resistance movement. It's pretty interesting. This tweet here, everyone talks about Yahya Sinwar, but no one actually listened to him. It's time to understand the other side of the story. Everyone says, why are they resisting? Why haven't they tried peaceful resistance? Here's the answer.
مقتنعين قناعة يقينية بأنه نحن لا نريد الحرب ولا نريد القتال لأنه كلفته باهظة وشعبنا إحنا في غنى عن مثل هذه المواجهات وهذه الحروب. إحنا في فترات طويلة لجأنا إلى أساليب المقاومة الشعبية السلمية والمقاومة الشعبية، وللأسف الشديد جدا كنا نعتقد بأنه العالم والدول العالم والشعوب الحرة والمنظومات الدولية تقف إلى جانب شعبنا وتكبح الاحتلال من أن يرتكب جرائم ومجازر ضد شعبنا، لكن للأسف الشديد جدا وقف العالم متفرجا على آلة حرب جيش الاحتلال وهي تقتل أبنائنا.
We know that over 230 people were killed, many children were killed, and there's also investigations into potential war crimes that took place when Gaza was bombarded. But also we know that Hamas fired rockets into civilian areas in Israel and also killed people and children, not on the same scale as Israel, but that did happen. How do you respond to that? They are also allegations of war crimes.
إسرائيل التي تمتلك ترسانة الحرب الكبرى.
Okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to translate because I know there's some audio-only listeners and others. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to translate what he's saying here. Because we know that we don't want war or fighting because it costs lives. And our people deserve peace. For long periods of time, we've tried peaceful resistance. Unfortunately, we expected that the international community, free people, and international organizations would stop the occupation from committing crimes and massacring our people. Unfortunately, the world stood by and watched as the occupation war machine killed our young people.
We know that over 230 people were killed, many children were killed, and there's also investigations into potential war crimes that took place when Gaza was bombarded. But also we know that Hamas fired rockets into civilian areas in Israel and also killed people and children, not on the same scale as Israel, but that did happen. How do you respond to that? They are also allegations of war crimes.
Israel, which possesses a complete arsenal of weaponry, state-of-the-art equipment, and aircrafts, intentionally bombs and kills our children and women. And they do that on purpose. You can't compare that to those who resist and defend themselves with weapons that look primitive in comparison. If we had the capabilities to launch precision missiles that targeted military targets, we wouldn't have used the rockets that we did. We were forced to defend our people with what we have, and this is what we have. What are we supposed to do? Should we raise the white flag? That's not going to happen. Does the world expect us to be well-behaved victims while we're getting killed? For us to be slaughtered without making a noise? That's impossible. We decided to defend our people with whatever weapons we have.
مقتنعين قناعة يقينية بأنه نحن لا نريد
And it's crazy how you can find echoes of this in any anti-colonial resistance. Like if you look at Battle of Algiers, you see the exact same arguments taking place. Like the idea that this is just about Gaza or just about Hamas or just about Israel or Palestine. It's like this is what colonialist violence and the resistance to colonialist violence, this is what it looks like. We've seen it time and time and time again. I'm trying to find the scene now from Battle of Algiers. Yeah, look, it's the same thing.
Bon, allez, les photographes, terminés.
Monsieur Ben-Midi, ne trouvez-vous pas plutôt lâche d'utiliser les...
He says, isn't it cowardly to use your women's baskets to carry bombs, which have taken so many innocent lives? Isn't it even more cowardly to attack defenseless villages with napalm bombs that kill many thousands of times more? Obviously, planes would make things easier for us. Give us your bombers, sir, and you can have our baskets.
Mr. Bamhidi.
You just see it time and time again. Let them have a state that can engage in trade and defense contracts with other nations and see how it goes. Yeah. As much as we talk about this is like a war. Well, it's a war and bad things happen in war. But it's not a war when one side has an actual army and the other side has whatever they can manage to scrap together. Anyway, it's just preposterous to assume that you can keep just assassinating the leaders of these organizations, that it's going to make a difference. You know, it's just a completely delusional idea. Shout out to awesome now Cambridge professor and ICC critic Adam Branch for showing me this movie in undergrad. Yeah, I wish I had seen it sooner. I watched it on like October 11th or something like that. I had never seen it before, and of last year. As soon as this like most recent iteration of this conflict began, I was like, I gotta watch this movie. They tried to portray Ukraine as a scrappy group too, and like maybe you could describe Ukraine as having some kind of like being scrappy underdogs, but it's hard to make that case when they're being armed and trained by the world's most foremost military imperialist power, though. It kind of loses the sense of that, I think. Even if they might be struggling against all odds against a enemy that heavily outnumbers them. When you're backed and armed and trained and had been trained for multiple years prior to the war starting by the world's most foremost military imperialist power, you lose the sense of being scrappy underdogs. And they had scrappy fascist underdogs as well, which I think also dilutes that. Yes. Who march under the banner of people that committed the Holocaust. And the same people that lecture us about anti-Semitism tell us we must give these people Stinger missiles. We must give these actual neo-Nazis as many Stinger missiles as possible. But remember, if you criticize anything that Israel does, you're an anti-Semite. That's how cynical the use of anti-Semitism is when it comes to manipulating people's, thoughts and minds. Anyway, that line in Battle of Algiers goes insanely hard. But you see, like, there's a real connection with that Sinwar quote. Like, you're criticizing them for using cobbled together rockets when they're fighting an enemy that has the most state-of-the-art high-tech weaponry. Give them state-of-the-art laser-guided precision missiles. If you're worried about any of these like resistance movements firing rockets into civilian areas. And meanwhile, we have footage here of U.S. troops and American air defenses now fully deployed in Israel, ready for the coming war with Iran. But remember to vote for Kamala Harris because Trump's going to be worse.
Please watch your feet here. I don't want you guys to trip. This generator is a 3K generator. It powers the system, and it also powers these backup batteries. Missile has been rattled too much.
And remember, this peace deal that's being offered, the peace deal that's being offered is here, Palestinians. You're going to get a non-democratic state managed by the Saudis and the United States of America. You're going to get a non-democratic state that's managed by the people that have been supplying the bombs that are being dropped on your heads for the last year and for the last 80 years of your lives. That's the peace deal they're being offered. And the basic offer is that the collective punishment is going to continue until they accept it.
That lets us know that the missile has gone bad.
האמריקנים, בתרגיל משותף.
And you have people in the Democratic Party being like, this is Netanyahu's fault. This is Netanyahu. He's the problem. And then he's taking smiling selfies with the American military advisors that are over there helping him bomb more Palestinians.
American soldiers, our friends from the IDF. Can't think of a better example of the incredibly close and important cooperation between Israel and the United States.
I didn't see the Lindsey Graham clip, but I talked about it with Eric Sperling yesterday.
The American Armed Forces have made a commitment to Israel's safety and security. They've done this in many other ways, but I can't think of a better single example than what we're looking at right now. And it's a testament to the really unbreakable bond between Israel and the United States at so many different levels, including, of course, most importantly, mutual safety and security.
Well, I fully agree. I think this is a testament to the strength of the alliance between Israel and the
I'm not sure who it is, Old Dutch.
It's never been stronger. And the coalition for common defense that is expressed here not merely in express
count on
intentions
me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk
actual
you through all
forces
this.
on the ground, I think, is remarkable. So we're very, very
Thank you, Dimitri,
happy with
for the gifted sub.
cooperation and with the American commitment often expressed by President Trump to Israel's security.
Often expressed by President Trump. It's fucking insane with the level of support Biden's giving them. He's still just openly saying shit like that. Absolutely pathetic.
אני פה עם חיילים אמריקנים בביטוי עוצמתי של הקשר בין ארצות הברית וישראל. הברית הזאת מעולם לא הייתה כל כך חזקה בכל התחומים, אבל בראש ובראשונה בביטחון. ואני מאוד מעריך את המחויבות האמריקנית והמחויבות של הנשיא טראמפ לחיזוק הקשר הזה עוד יותר.
Hey Duke, how's it going? Joe did his first press conference of his presidency to remind Bibi all he's done for him. Yeah, it seems like it's gone over really well. It is just so unbelievably pathetic. I'm going to try and find that Lindsey Graham statement. And remember, with all the awful Republicans, this is the exact same policy. Lindsey Graham's promoting it. The exact same policy that the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are promoting right now. Havana syndrome patient, do you have this clip on hand? Because I talked about it yesterday. I talked about it with Eric Sperling, but it would be good to look at that, if we can. Hang on just one sec. Did Vice give up the Sinwar location? MFCIA asked news outlet. It was from 2021, that interview. So no, I don't think so. Meanwhile, here's what Kamala is saying about the Sinwar assassination. Okay, thank you so much, Pizzicata, for that. Here's what Kamala is now saying after the Sinwar assassination. I'm sure now Palestinians are just going to give up.
Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, is dead, and justice has been served. And the United States, Israel, and the entire world are better off as a result. Sinwar
Notice how she doesn't say anything about Palestine.
Thousands of innocent people, including the victims of October 7 and hostages killed in Gaza.
By Israel.
He had American blood on his hands. Today, I can only hope...
There's American blood on his hands, but like when Israel just kills Americans with impunity, that's also fine as well. That's actually totally okay. It's actually brat to do that.
That the families of the victims of Hamas feel a sense and measure of relief. Sinwar was the mastermind of October 7, the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust.
Still saying that.
A terrorist attack that killed 1,200 innocent people and included
1,200 innocent people.
Sexual violence and more than 250 hostages taken into Gaza, including 7 Americans.
1,200 innocent people, including multiple hundred innocent concentration camp guards.
Attack that triggered a devastating war in Gaza, a war that has led to unconscionable suffering of many innocent Palestinians and greater
300 innocent 19-year-old
throughout the
IDF
Middle
generals.
East. In the past year, American special operations and intelligence personnel have worked closely with their Israeli counterparts to locate and track Sinwar and other Hamas leaders. And I commend their work. And I will say, to any terrorist who kills Americans, threatens the American people, or threatens our troops or our interests, know this: we will always bring you to justice. Israel has a right to defend itself.
This just makes me sick.
Hamas poses to Israel
God damn.
must be eliminated. Today,
Still talking about Israel's right to defend itself. Still, a year later, we just saw someone burning alive. It's like, is that Israel's right to defend itself? We saw this weekend, young man, 20 years old, burning alive, attached to a hospital bed. We're still talking about Israel's right to defend itself. Still. And again, this is where the discrepancy comes in when someone like AOC then comes out and says, like, Joe Biden is subsidizing this genocide that's happening. That has to stop. Arms embargo. And by the way, Kamala Harris is working tirelessly for a ceasefire. You got to vote for her. And then she's out there saying this shit. And then she gets defensive that people get upset by that and be like, oh, I've been saying genocide for months. It doesn't really matter what you've been saying, though, when you're also saying you must support these people.
And its leadership is eliminated. This moment gives us an opportunity to finally end the war in Gaza. And it must end such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination. And it is time for the day after to begin.
Yeah, tell that to Israel. They're not listening.
Hamas in power.
They have no interest in this day after.
We will not give up on these goals, and I will always work to create a future of peace, dignity, and security for all. I thank you all.
Absolutely sickening. Nation of sickos. And like, when they talk about here's how the war ends, it's time for the war to end. This is what they're talking about. Lindsey Graham is going to spell it out in no uncertain terms. And you want a team of rivals? Here it is. Lindsey Graham is fully on board with this idea. This is bipartisan. This is what multiple U.S. administrations have been pursuing now for multiple years, going back to the Donald Trump administration, where the key administration to promote this idea. Lindsey Graham is going to spell it out, exactly what the end of this war is going to look like.
Now's the time, if you're ever going to do it, to start a dialogue with Saudi Arabia about the day after.
Right, but the Saudis have also been very clear that what they want in return, that there needs to be a viable, sovereign, independent Palestinian state which the Israelis recognize.
They want two things. For them to recognize the state of Israel, they want a defense agreement with the United States. Saudi Arabia and the United States would have a mutual defense agreement like we have with Japan and Australia. In other words, the United States would go to war for Saudi Arabia. That requires 67 votes in the U.S. Senate. Senator Blumenthal is a Democrat trying to get the votes. I told MBS a year and a half ago, that will be a heavy lift, but I will try.
But the Israelis also have to want to recognize an independent Palestinian state. They're not going to do that.
He's like, don't worry.
An independent sovereign nation called Palestine, with security guarantees for Israel to make sure there's no future October 7th. It will be more like an emirate than it will be a democracy. MBS and MBZ at the UAE will come in and rebuild Gaza. They will reform the PA. They will create an enclave in the Palestine. that can live in peace and harmony with Israel. They will stop teaching their children to kill the Jews. A de-radicalized, a demilitarized...
Is that actually true? Is that how they teach it?
Yes, literally. So, bottom line, a de-radicalized, a demilitarized Palestinian enclave is what Israel wants. And here's the rub.
This is the plan.
After October 7th, declaring a Palestinian state after the attack would be seen as rewarding terrorism. That's the universal view of the Jewish people. The two-state solution, as we know it, died on October the 7th.
You think it's dead?
I think as it's been envisioned,
it was really alive prior to that as well.
That was the goal of the Iranians. If you don't have a day after plan like I described, Hamas will come back. If you don't have a day after plan like I described, Hezbollah will regenerate, and you'll have 50 years of Israel half in and half out. There will be no normalization. Nobody's going to come to this region to do business because it's going to be on fire.
So just really let's let Lindsey Graham spell this out for us. This is what, and when Kamala talks about this, this is the plan. This is not like, oh, this is the Republican plan and Kamala Harris and the Democrats, they have their own plan. This is the plan that they're trying to push through right now. A non-democratic Palestinian state that's being administered by the Saudis and the United States. And the collective punishment is going to continue until Palestinians agree to never have any kind of armed resistance. Then they'll allow Saudi Arabia to come in and rebuild Gaza and build a bunch of housing and whatever else. And then the blockade ends. They get a pretend state that doesn't actually have any kind of democratic legitimacy. And Saudi Arabia gets a mutual defense pact with the United States like a Middle Eastern NATO. That's the plan. And that's not the one version of the plan, and the Democrats have a different plan. That is the plan from the United States government and the intelligence community and the national security state. That's what they want. That's what they're trying to make happen right now. And that's what this like fake ultimatum was about ending the humanitarian crisis and allowing aid in, so they can force through this kind of plan in the lame duck session. It's just one neocon plan that they all back. Yes. So just in case there's been any confusion about what the US plan is for ending this conflict, that's what it is. He just spelled it out for us. And the sick logic of it is that like people have suffered so much that they're going to be willing to accept whatever deal we offer them. You know, the violence stops, the bombing stops, you get infrastructure, you get to develop, you get a state, even though you have no democracy, and it's being administered by the Saudis and by the US, who have been funding your colonization and occupation for the last 80 years and just sent Israel all those bombs that we just dropped on your heads for the last year, killing all your families and your uncles and mothers and fathers and sons and daughters and nieces and nephews and aunts and friends, family, assassinating all the doctors and nurses, dropping bombs on hospitals and schools, white phosphorus, whatever else, whatever other horrors that we've unleashed. We've funded this all, and in your fake non-democratic state that we're going to generously offer you, we're going to be managing that. And if just don't resist anymore ever again, and maybe you're going to be allowed to live in something resembling peace and security. And we get a military pact with Saudi Arabia that's going to allow us to continue our Cold War with Iran and Russia and China. This is the US plan. You know? So we have to ask ourselves, like, what do we think the result of that's going to be? And here's the ultimate irony of this is that I don't think there's appetite in Israel for this. Even if it's in their own best interest, which I'm sure it is. The people, the real hardcore Zionists that are in charge of Israel want one state. Israel, and they wanted to extend further into Lebanon and into Syria and into all these other places, Jordan. They don't want the situation where they get to finally take their foot off the gas and give the Palestinians their fake state under whatever borders they might have left. I don't even know what that would look like given the decades of settlements. Certainly this deal would not involve Israel pulling back their settlements in these occupied territories. That is the ultimate irony, though. They're going to be the ones that are going to be the stumbling block to this. Even if it is in their best interest and it's in for their own security. They'd have to coup Netanyahu and the population would also be mad. Yeah, to say nothing of like the actual population of people in Israel. Are they going to be okay with that? Maybe some might. But just when we watch that statement with Kamala Harris and she talks about like the war has to end, what's that going to look like? This is what it is. This is their plan. Why would they ever make a deal when we just send troops to back them? It's like we don't even want the deal. Yeah, it's like we've still... this ultimatum is still just like totally fake. They're not even... Like maybe they might have leverage if they said, take this fucking deal, take yes for an answer, or we're cutting off the weapons. Like, they're not even saying that, though. One moment after making this a fake ultimatum, they're like, but don't worry, we won't actually cut off the weapons. Don't worry about that. And we're still sending over military advisors to help you do this. And we're still giving this nonstop supply of weapons. Like, that's the amazing thing. The U.S., even with this deal that they think is in everyone's best interest, don't even want to use what massive amounts of leverage that they have to get Israel to get on board with it. Like, they could say that. And maybe that's what Donald Trump's going to say if he does get in. Or maybe Donald Trump is going to take a look at this deal and the neocons that support it and say it's a terrible deal and just go back to giving Israel everything they want. There's that likelihood as well. Israel's having a normal one with a children's book about settling Lebanon. Love the use of settling Lebanon instead of invading. Maybe Russia's just settling Ukraine. But don't call them settler colonialists, though, even though they're writing children's books about settling Lebanon. Don't call them settler colonialists, though, because that's, you guessed it, anti-Semitic. Oh. So that's where we're at today. After a year of some of the most horrifying violence that we've seen. This is the deal that's being offered to Palestinians.
Now's the time, if you ever going to...
Sorry. They're not colonial settlers, they're pilgrims. Yeah, and as we know from social studies, the colonials are nice and they share Turkey. I should just take a moment to remind folks, now that we've had this important discussion and analysis, and we're going to continue for a little bit here. If you do want to support this program, remember, where you get this kind of information, and we have these discussions, and we have these conversations, and we do this kind of coverage of this and other geopolitical situations, please subscribe if you can. Help me support this program if you can, if possible. I certainly would appreciate it a whole lot. I'm just doing a little call to action. We're trying to make the number go up. We're trying to make the little number go up each and every day, if possible.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Kijiji Genie, thank you very much for 5 gifted subs. That's very kind of you.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
And Anon, thank you for a gifted sub as well. Thank you, Anon. As I've noted many times, the most Christ-like of all sub-gifters. So again, folks, if you do enjoy the program, if you like being part of the community, if you want to get all the tiny little images that you can get access to by subscribing to this program, please subscribe. I'm trying to make this little number go up each and every day that I do this for, as I've mentioned earlier, 4 straight years now. It's been 4 years of doing this thing and trying to make this little number rise each and every day.
You can count on me. You're
Yeah, Bleep Lords. I mean, it's hard not to be incredibly nihilistic seeing stuff like this day in, day out. Like, not only the images of violence, but these psychos like cheering it on.
Rob to talk you through all this.
It really does churn your stomach, doesn't it? Not another bean stain. Thanks for the 14 months of Prime.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Perfect Speller, thank you for a gifted sub as well, and thank you, Lil Baby Beef, as well for another gifted sub. Very kind of you. Yeah, we're all going insane, Old Dutch. That's, again, as I always mention, that's why I'm thankful to have this community and this outlet to talk about these things. Has definitely been helpful for me over the last year and over the last 4 years to talk about all this stuff on here each and every day. I hope it's been helpful for you as well. Those were 2 solid usernames back to back. I take comfort that after every world war, communism comes out stronger. Well, that's what Mao told us. Not that it wouldn't be extremely painful for millions of people to have to experience. Really high quality of usernames in the TRRS chat. It's true. We see some good ones. We see some good ones on here. We do have a little bit of a hype train going on now, folks, as well. We're at level 3. Do we hear level 4? Are there any other brave heroes I would like to support this program? I'm 20 measly subs away from getting to the goal. This is kind of a half-hearted call to action segment, frankly. Still miss Anus Beard. Gone but not forgotten. We still see Anus Beard sometimes. It graces us with their presence every now and then still. It's also been exactly a year since the Al Ali hospital bombing. I'll never forget the feeling of going insane.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to
thinking the images of the shredded children would change at least something, just to then see some progressives fall for the Islamic Jihad rocket line. Yeah, Relic. I mean that news broke live when we was doing this show, and like I remember thinking, like, is this going to be the red line when people realize like how far this has gotten? And at that moment, never did I suspect that not only would those images not change anything at all, that the image of doctors doing a press conference, which was a year ago, a press conference surrounded by corpses in this hospital courtyard. Not only would it not change anything at all, You had a bunch of people, including all the cooler than cool OSINT anarchist people, engaging in this bullshit operation to deny Israel's responsibility for that. And then we've had a year of all of similar atrocities, an entire year, including every other hospital in Gaza being targeted by the same kind of violence over and over. And now there's no even effort to disguise that. Like there was with that Al-Ali bombing a year ago, there was this whole coordinated effort to obscure that and obfuscate who was responsible. You know, the media got involved and these political figures got involved. Joe Biden went to Israel like a couple fucking days later and gave Netanyahu a hug shortly afterwards. And now they've just bombed dozens of other hospitals. We just saw one of the worst atrocities that we've seen over the weekend of a person in a hospital bed burning alive a year later. And now there's no effort whatsoever to deny who is responsible. Zero effort whatsoever. No effort to cover it up or anything like that. Yeah, that was the green light. That was the green light. And they have just not taken their foot off the gas now the entire year. There's been no red lines, no atrocity that they can't get away with. That became clear at that time. There's nothing we can do that the West and America and Joe Biden won't back us. And they still don't like Joe Biden, and they still don't respect him, and they still want Donald Trump to beat him in this election. Thank you, Bleep Lord, for the gifted sub.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
The good old days when bombing a hospital was seen as bad. That's right. Like it's genuinely shocking to think about. Not another bean stain. Thank you so much for 5 gifted subs. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Saw an account call out Bellingcat for their reporting on it, and the founder came into their replies and started arguing with everyone. I will never forget all these fucking guys showing, well, not so fast now, like measuring the craters in this hospital courtyard with their little like red lines on MS Paint or whatever it is. Well, not so fast. I don't know what more needs to happen with some of these outlets that people realize like what their jobs are. And then it's just been a year of bombing every other hospital. No effort to cover it up at all. And you have journalists and like people in the West that get accused of abetting terrorism when they support people resisting that. It's completely an upside down universe that we're living in here. I remember the IOF saying things like, how dare you accuse us of this? We would never do such a thing, and then destroying nearly every hospital in sight. Like, it's honestly just incredible. Like, it's like, I don't even know how to wrap my mind around this. And then again, this is what you have the administration doing. Now we know about their peace plan and what that is. This is the Hamas terrorist timesheets. The nurse. I will never forget. The laziness of the propaganda is honestly just so shocking. Hamas has taken over the hospital. I will never forget how insane that is. Ya Allah, Hamas has taken over the hospital. Just the most lazy, low-effort propaganda ever. Barely even trying. First it was Israel would never bomb a hospital, and now the German foreign minister is out there arguing that Israel should and is allowed to bomb hospitals anyway because human shields. But remember, if there's IDF people in a hospital in Tel Aviv, or if there's like military installations or the Mossad headquarters in Tel Aviv, that is also terrorism to go after those, of course. Yeah, the intercepted phone calls. Oh, brother, we accidentally blew up the hospital. Fucking insane. And here's what the administration is doing still. From this piece in Politico. Biden envoy told aid groups Israel too close an ally for U.S. to suspend arms. Even with knowing full well that they've been withholding aid, which is literally a crime. It's a crime to be supplying arms to this regime. The top U.S. official working on the humanitarian situation in Gaza told aid groups in August that the U.S. would not consider withholding weapons from Israel for blocking food and medicine from entering the enclave, a rare admission by someone in the administration. At the August 29th meeting in Washington, Lise Grand told the leaders of more than a dozen aid organizations that the U.S. could potentially consider other tactics to convince Israel to allow life-saving aid into Gaza, such as applying pressure through the United Nations, but stressed that the administration would continue to support Israel and would not delay or stop weapons shipments. That account is based on conversations with 3 people in the meeting and 2 others who were briefed on it, along with a set of detailed notes from the encounter reviewed by Politico. The people were granted anonymity in order to speak more freely about Grand's assessment and because they feared their organization's work might be further interrupted in Gaza. A humanitarian aid official who attended the meeting said Grand noted that Israel is in a tight circle of very few allies that the U.S. will not oppose, nor will it hold anything back from what they want. This from Lil Baby Beef. Did you ever see this by NPR? They got satellite images and compared Gaza before and after it started. You cannot refute the fact that they're just bombing whatever. There's not this much Hamas in Gaza. The scale of destruction is just absolutely insane. This is severely damaged, moderately damaged, destroyed, and undamaged. The legend. Here's damaged or destroyed and undamaged. Tree crops. Southern Gaza City before and after. Khan Yunis before and after. Just turning Gaza into a desert. Yeah, and again, the pitch is like, now you're going to allow Saudi Arabia to come in and rebuild all this in your like non-democratic state that's administered by the United States and the Saudi Arabia. The very first image shows month by month the damage. Pre-war, October 2023, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, till September. The pace of destruction has slowed. Researchers estimate that nearly 60% of Gaza's buildings are damaged or destroyed. The Americans might want Saudi Arabia to come in and rebuild, but Israel is never going to allow that. They want that territory for themselves. I mean, and then again, when we talk about this seems like the big question to me. Whether there's I know there's appetite for people in the United States and a little bit of appetite for people in Saudi Arabia because they want that security pact with the U.S. and getting access to all kinds of new state-of-the-art weaponry that they didn't have access to before. Is there actually appetite from this in Israeli leadership or society for Palestinians to have any kind of a state, even a fake, non-democratic state administered by the United States and Saudi Arabia? That's the question. I don't really think that there is, even if that would be in their best interests.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Narmeen Sheikh in New York.
Here's Democracy Now! On U.S. troops being
we
deployed.
end today's show looking at the rising risk of a broader regional war in the Middle East. The Pentagon has announced U.S. B-2 bombers attacked 5 Houthi targets in Yemen earlier today. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said the attacks came in response to Houthis' quote, destabilizing behavior. Houthi fighters have attacked vessels in the Red Sea and the Gulf
It's the Houthis that are destabilizing
and vowed to continue until Israel ends its assault on Gaza and Lebanon. This comes as the Biden administration is deploying an advanced anti-missile defense system and 100 U.S. troops to Israel, as Israel threatens to carry out retaliatory strikes against Iran in response to Iran's recent ballistic missile attack on Israeli military and security sites. Earlier today, the commander of Iran's elite Revolutionary Guards issued a new warning to Israel. The commander, Hossein Salami, was speaking at the funeral of Brigadier General Abbas Nilforoshan, who was killed in the Israeli attack that killed Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah.
That shipwreck GoPro video is so sick.
You, Israel, may imagine that THAADs can compensate for your shortcomings in defending you. This is a mistake. Do not trust the tubes of these launchers. You cannot massacre Muslim nations, but remain safe, secure, and live in peace. No, that cannot happen.
We're joined now by Trita Parsi, Executive Vice President of the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. He's the author of several books, including Losing an Enemy, Obama, Iran, and the Triumph of Diplomacy. Welcome back to Democracy Now!, Trita. If you could just begin by responding to this latest news.
So I think it's extremely important for the American public to understand that what Biden has done here is that he has deployed U.S. troops into an active war zone in another country's war. There are no direct and clear U.S. interests at stake here. And the Biden administration is essentially presenting this as if it is defending Israel or helping Israel defend itself, whereas in reality, these are the distinction between defensive and offensive weapons here is rather irrelevant, because what the Biden administration is doing is reducing the cost for Israel to escalate tensions in the region. Every time Biden does this, it makes it easier for Israel to escalate. And as a result, it has continues to do exactly that.
You can count on
if
me.
Biden was not reducing the cost of escalation, it would have been costlier for Israel
Thank you, Dimitri,
to
for
do
the
the
good
steady
tip.
escalation as we've seen in the last year, widening of the war. And it would have thought twice. Perhaps the cost would even have been prohibitive. So if the Biden administration's actual goal is to prevent the widening of the war, prevent escalation in the region, adding defensive or any type of military capabilities to the side that actually is leading the escalation is not something that in any way, shape, or form actually can help calm the situation down. Instead, it actually helps fuel tensions in the region and increases the likelihood of the very same widening of the war that Biden claims that he is against.
Can you give us, Trita, a chronology of what happened? The bombing on the inauguration of the new president by Israel of Tehran. Not clear if it was an airstrike, if it was a bomb that was planted that killed the Hamas negotiator, Ismail Haniyeh. Then that was Israel. Iran waits weeks and then attacks with 180 anti-ballistic missiles that kill no one but a Palestinian who died from, not clear, the shrapnel that came down from the sky in Jericho. They said they were just targeting military sites in Israel. Is Iran coordinating, by the way, with the United States, actually, in all of this? Is there more behind-the-scenes communication than we understand?
There is behind-the-scenes communication, undoubtedly, and there is, perhaps at a surface level, a degree of coordination. I think the Iranians do not want to see escalation, knowing very well that they are in a weaker military position, and they know quite well that Netanyahu has been itching for a war for quite some time, a war that he designs to drag the U.S. into it. And his best opportunity to drag the U.S. into this unnecessary war is in the next 3 weeks. So the Iranians have been rather restrained, hoping that they would avoid walking into Israel's trap. This is part of the reason why, after the assassination of Haniyeh, despite the fact that they promised a response, they didn't respond. They claimed that there were promises from the U.S. and Europe that there would be a ceasefire and that they waited to give that a chance. No ceasefire came, but on top of that, instead, Israel attacks Lebanon, kills Nasrallah as well as the senior IRGC official. And after that, the Iranians decide to respond, and they do so by striking military targets. And in that strike, they also demonstrate their capacity to penetrate Israel's air defenses, which is precisely why when the THAAD is now being deployed over there in Israel is an indication, is an admission that the Israeli air defenses are insufficient. This, again, goes back to what I said earlier on. Every time Israel escalates the war, Biden rushes in to protect Israel from the consequences of its own escalation. That is not a strategy to prevent escalation. That is a strategy that fuels escalation.
So, Trita, could we also talk about what role countries in the region could potentially play in any possible retaliation against Iran? The Iranian foreign minister was recently in Riyadh. He's now in Egypt. But people have spoken specifically about Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Israel has been trying to persuade them to, quote, not facilitate any possible Israeli retaliation. If you could talk about the relationship between the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Iran, the various sites at which they've been at odds, and where they stand at the moment vis-a-vis Iran.
There's been an interesting evolution of the position of the Saudis and the Emiratis. 15 years ago, they were not publicly, but privately, they were lobbying the U.S. quite aggressively to go to war with Iran. This was revealed by the WikiLeaks, in which the cables showed how much very senior officials, including the king of Saudi Arabia at the time, was pushing for the U.S. to go to war. This has now changed in the last couple of years. There's both been a bit of a rapprochement between these countries, but also a clear realization on the Saudi and the Emirati side that the Iranians actually have capabilities that go far beyond what they had expected, which means that in case of a war, the Iranians would have the capacity of destroying a tremendous amount of facilities in Saudi Arabia and the Emirates. And as a result, those two countries would suffer tremendously in the case of a war, which is something that they previously did not think was the case. Today, I don't think they are in any way, shape, or form eager for this type of a confrontation. And I think the message from the Iranian side to them has been that if they facilitate, if they allow their airspace to be used or their bases to be used for an attack against Iran, the Iranians will also retaliate against them directly. I think that message from the Iranians is sent to them in order for them to put pressure on the Biden administration to actually restrain Israel, something that the Biden administration has been unwilling to do. The Iranians don't have a direct way of pressuring the Biden administration, but they appear to be calculating that through Saudi Arabia and the UAE, there may be a greater likelihood that the Biden administration finally will do something to prevent the Israelis from further escalation.
Trita Parsi, according to the Washington Post, Israel's now considering striking military sites in Iran, but not Iran's oil or nuclear facilities. However, many in the U.S. and Israel are saying take this moment to take out Iran's nuclear facilities. We know, of course, Trump pulled the U.S. out of the Iran nuclear deal that Obama had negotiated. What exactly would this mean, what is about to take place, apparently?
Most military analysis point to the fact that the Israelis actually don't have the capacity of delivering a fatal blow to Iran's nuclear facilities. They have been pushing for a larger attack, including against oil installations and economic infrastructure. The Biden administration has pushed back and has essentially delivered a list of military targets that they believe would be adequate for Israel's response. The Israelis reportedly have agreed to this, but I think it's very important to understand that most of this is frankly meaningless. Because once the Israelis strike, particularly if they strike against military sites and try to target military officials, as they have done in Lebanon, there will be civilian casualties. There will be an escalation that will almost make it inevitable for the Iranians to then respond again, which then means that in the second iteration of this, the Israelis are very likely to go after economic infrastructure, oil installations, and potentially the nuclear program as well. As long as we are on an escalatory cycle, it does not matter what the first step is. What matters is what the last step is. And as long as we are on that cycle and Biden is not preventing it, it's frankly meaningless if the first step is to avoid targeting nuclear sites and economic infrastructure. This will escalate towards a war in which all of those different things will be targeted, both on the Iranian side as well as on the Israeli side.
And Trita, finally, if you could respond to the fact that Netanyahu, much like we spoke about this in our earlier segment on Lebanon, much like as he did with Lebanon, gave a direct address to the Lebanese people. He did the same with Iran last month, saying with every passing moment, the Iranian government is bringing the noble Persian people closer to the abyss. What is the significance of this, and why is he doing that?
Well, he's done this on previous occasions as well, not only in the context of Gaza and Lebanon, but in the case of Iran as well. I think the primary target of this is actually not the Iranian public. The message was in English, and the original video had English subtitles. This is a message to the Western audience in order to present Israel's war of aggression as a defensive war, as a war that will help get rid of a very unpopular regime in Iran. And as a result, just as with the Iraq war, this deserves the support of the Western publics because the government in Iran is so problematic, similar to the argument against Saddam Hussein. And remember, it was Netanyahu who testified in Congress back right before the Iraq war, promising that an attack on Iraq would have positive reverberations throughout the entire region.
Thank you, Trita Parsi. I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Trita Parsi, Executive Vice President of
Classic
the
Democracy
Institute for
Now!
Responsible Statecraft and author.
I wanted to get to Karnoba's comment there. Trita Parsi's a longtime Iran whisperer, but I doubt he has much contact with the people there. He wasn't born there. Dr. Morandi commented about pundits like him, though not by name, to Brian Becker last week. That's an interesting observation. I still do, appreciate the insight and the analysis, but that is probably something we should keep in mind. Didn't get that. You have to wrap up. You have 1.5 seconds. Yeah, they love to pull that move on Democracy Now! I guess another thing I wanted to watch as well is that Chris Hayes did a segment on this young man, Shaban Al-Dalou. That's a funny pause face. I've been somewhat of a Chris Hayes apologist over the year in terms of like MSNBC hosts. I think he hasn't gone off the deep end to the same extent that some of his, colleagues have, like Rachel Maddow, who's just completely lost her mind on the live television over the last few years. He's someone that I used to be someone that I kind of respected and like to watch. Chris Hayes does this thing a lot of the time, this like dumb guy act where he says, how is this happening? You know, who's responsible for this? Which I find a little irritating because I think he's a smart guy and knows full well what the answers to these questions are. I do think that like there are limits to what he can say and talk about on this kind of program. I do appreciate that he does this segment. I guess what I find interesting is the kind of contradiction between someone like Chris Hayes putting up this segment, which I think is a pretty important thing to put on mainstream media in the US, while also examining his own role and MSNBC's role in promoting the very people that are supporting this violence that's leading to this, and how he kind of tries to walk this line. His job needs him to not understand the very obvious. I think that's the easiest way to break it down. Chris, why isn't the media reporting on this? Hayes, yes, absolutely.
More than 2 million people live in Gaza, and at least 90% of them have been displaced from their homes in 90%. The year since Israel launched its war in Gaza after the October 7th attacks.
It's the Libs hot dog costume thing.
The UN. One of those Palestinians is that man you saw there, Shaban Ahmed al-Dalu, who you just heard from in the video. Today is Shaban's 20th birthday. And a bunch of folks around the world got to know him through his posts on social media, on Instagram and YouTube. In addition to studying computer science and English, which he speaks quite well, Shaban would post photos of himself playing the guitar. He had dreams of studying abroad to become a doctor. He would volunteer in an open-air Palestinian medical clinic. And he even organized, like a lot of Palestinians have, he organized a GoFundMe campaign to raise the money that might secure his family's travel to safety in Egypt, something that's extremely expensive and extremely difficult to come by in the Gaza Strip. When the war began last year, he and his family of 7, you see them there, they fled their home in Gaza City. And as you heard him say, they had to move at least 5 times since then. There's been
5 times they had to
bombing and
move.
airstrikes and violence in all different regions throughout the Strip. So most recently, they had finally settled outside the Al-Aqsa hospital, but there were no shelters. So Shaban built one for his family.
I'm taking care of my family as I'm the oldest. I have 2 sisters and 2 little brothers and my parents. We live in a very hard circumstances, suffering from various
We watched this the other day, the
things,
drones outside, so disturbing.
Such as homelessness and limited food and extremely limited medicine. And the only things between us and the freezing temperature is this tent that we constructed by ourselves.
Now, this is one story of hundreds of thousands, right, that folks that have had to do this. And even in the tent camp, Shaban continued his studies. He often walked around outside to find an internet signal. And amid the just ghastly conditions and the constant shortages of food and medicine, he even donated his own blood to help the injured. 11 days ago, Shaban would require medical assistance of his own. He was injured in an Israeli airstrike on his mosque that's near the hospital. And in that strike, he suffered a head
Airstrike
wound
on the mosque
that required
in
11
the hospital.
stitches, his family said. He was recuperating in their tent on Monday when, for at least the 6th time this year, an Israeli airstrike targeted the hospital where Shaban and his family were staying. They were staying right outside it. I want to warn you, the images that follow are really disturbing. Witnesses captured the inferno outside the hospital after that airstrike. NBC News confirmed that the strike killed 5 people and it injured dozens more as the fire spread through a bunch of the structures that were out there. And the dead included Shaban. What you see here are the last moments of Shaban al-Dalu's life as he burned alive in his family's tent, an IV line still attached to his body. NBC News confirms his mother also died in that fire. The Israeli military said it executed a precise strike on terrorists, their words, operating in a, quote, command and control center next to the hospital. On his GoFundMe page, Shaban wrote, "My life has been turned upside down by the unyielding bombings and shelling. Once brimming with aspirations, I now face the harsh reality of displacement and uncertainty. In Gaza, dreams go to die. Each displacement leaves behind another fragment of our shattered souls. Time feels like it's stopped in Gaza, and we're stuck in a never-ending nightmare."
The kid was certainly on the list
That
of
young man
terrorists
should
they
have
supposedly
celebrated his
killed.
20th
For sure,
birthday
yeah,
today.
absolutely.
Instead, the world became a witness to his violent death in a video depicting the endless horrors in Gaza, horrors that, whether we like it or not, our government and our weapons are facilitating day after day until something changes.
So, I don't know, like watching this segment, it's like, it's conflicting, isn't it? Because it's like, I think there's value to someone like Chris Hayes using his platform to tell that story. And there's things left out of that story about, why are they fleeing? Like people have been pointing out. And Chris Hayes, again, as his role as an MSNBC host, is basically part of the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party, the liberal wing of the United States government. That's just undeniable. Chris gonna get fired for that line. I don't think he'll get fired. I don't think he will. I think he does. Like I said, I think he's a smart guy and knows how to walk this line. And I understand. I get frustrated by this too. I understand. Like Chris Hayes is not going to go on MSNBC as much as we would all like him to and say death to Israel as a result of this. I'm sure we would all like that. But he's not. I think we all understand that he's not going to do that, and there are limits to what he can say. And I think he does deserve a little bit of credit, even if he's someone that I do find really frustrating with this act that he does a lot. How could this have happened? Who's responsible for this? Yeah, he's been part of the process of manufacturing consent for it. I do think it's valuable for someone like him to use his platform to talk about this at the same time. It's a really powerful story. Is it making any impact? Did the liberals that watched this program, did they come away convinced of anything? Did they change their minds about anything? I kind of doubt it. I don't know. But this is as close as you can possibly get to revealing the actual truth of this on mainstream media. MSNBC literally has Lockheed as an advisor. And I wonder if it's all, because there's part of a coordinated push right now. Mainstream media in America, I think, has you saw that in the New York Times as well, who have played a key role in manufacturing consent for this. The New York Times having on these doctors that have been working in Gaza, this big expose talking about children being targeted. You have Chris Hayes using maybe a little bit more forceful language, a little bit more focusing on these stories. You have AOC coming out and making this kind of big criticism. You got to wonder if some of this is part of a sort of coordinated effort to start putting more pressure to try and manufacture the possibility of this Saudi-led peace deal that they've been talking about, that we talked about earlier. If nothing changed their mind in the past year, I doubt this will as well. And I agree. I mean, I don't know what needs to happen. Like we were saying earlier, I thought the bombing of the hospital 1 year ago, that was going to be the red line for the American liberal class, and how wrong we all were about that. We learned over the last year that there's nothing that these people won't accept and make excuses for. Anyway, I guess I just find it interesting that someone like Chris Hayes is using his platform to talk about this, and I gotta wonder whether it's part of some overall broader coordinated effort to start putting more pressure
in Gaza.
Not that that's actually accomplishing anything, and the Biden administration's made perfectly clear they're going to continue funding this no matter what. So. Attached because terror-based to whatever you blow up, and it's all good for the West. Yeah, this has been proven time and time again. There was a terror base in the series of self-constructed tents outside this hospital filled with families and refugees. And no problem, says the Western benefactors. I'm going to get going, folks. I'm at kind of the end of my energy reserves for the day. Cutting it short a little bit early. ideally probably doing this show. I need to be doing it probably 4 or 5 hours a day, and I've been struggling to get there, frankly. But I gotta get going soon. I gotta get going. I'm tired. I gotta pick up my kid from school soon. I was late getting started. That's all I got. That's all I got for today. If you do want to support the program, though, folks, there's still time to do that. I'm going to go in a few minutes, just finding someone that I can raid into here. But before we go, if you do enjoy the program and you enjoy the work that I do on Twitch, you
can
get
count
some
on
kind
me.
of
You're gonna have good old
something
Rob
out of that.
to, talk you
being
through
part of
all
the
this.
community, whatever it is, please subscribe if you can. Barbara, thank you for the gifted sub. That's very kind of you. Thank you, Barbara. I do see a couple of unsubbed folks in the chat. Maybe some kind benefactors will come through and
you can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through
come
all
through
this.
and support some of those folks. Get them into the community. Ames, thank you for the gifted sub as well. Very kind of you. Thank you for putting your energy today into talking us through all this. I'm glad you've that catchphrase has slowly burned itself into all of your brains now over the last 4 years that I've been doing this program. I know I still owe you a song. I know that. I'm aware of that. I have not forgotten. Still only 10 subs to go to get to the goal. About 40 seconds left. If some true hero wants to come through, a brave hero can still come through. With the buzzer beater. It's still possible. You're telling me there's a chance. Always good to see the Sankaras in the chat. It was Sankara's birthday the other day as well. I forgot to mention it. Rest in power to Sankara. He was a real one. So thanks again, folks. I should be back tomorrow. Talk to you then. Goodbye.